It's Mikey Rising. You quit. You should have kept going, Mikey. This is our composed by Mikey's soundtrack. Those little synths. All right, everybody. Welcome. Hope you guys are doing well. Mikey, I feel like you have a different configuration every time you come on here of facial hair.
Yeah, man, I'm just having some fun with life.
You're rocking the Henry Cavill kind of setup right now.
Good call.
When Top Gun, the second one, came out, which was maybe 3 years ago.
Yeah.
I was like, the mustache has to come. And now I realize.
Oh, yeah. You're going
like,
for the.
My younger sister is like, she's like 23 years old, 24 years old. She calls it the millennial mustache. I'm like, no, I'm the only one who has it, okay? And then I started looking online on Instagram, and like every guy in their 30s doing a mustache. I'm like,
I can't believe you brought up Top Gun Maverick because it actually was on my mind, and I want to talk about it. So instead of maybe doing our silly stories from Wednesday night, maybe we could talk about Top Gun Maverick. But before we do, I have to introduce our guest because I am so excited to have this guest. The man that Top Gun was based on. No,
Here we go. Wow, man, we're getting deep fast, ain't we? Holy smokes.
Ladies and gentlemen, we have with us Paul Kangus, who is a ruling elder that I was able to serve under, and also our producer, Katie, we both served under at the same church in Maryland, and is my golden shining example of elder oversight for youth ministry. So we're going to talk about that. But you and I, Paul, the very first time we met was at a Chevy's restaurant, and we met for lunch because it was near where you worked. Do you remember how long that meal was?
I'm going to guess 4 hours.
It was 4 hours.
Yeah. That's like typical. Like, we're only going to be here for like an hour. Nope.
And it was our very first meeting, and we talked so long that we almost went into another meal. Like we could have.
Yep, we could have. Yeah, we could have shut Chevy's down that day.
And a big part of that was movies, because you are even more than I am. You are the movie guru. So, it actually pertains to what we're talking about, I think it pertains to youth ministry. Why is Top Gun Maverick so awesome? That's my question. That's my opener. Non-consequential topic for the
especially moment. After the first one being so good. Like how?
Yes.
You know.
And I always say that Top Gun is the best thing to happen to the Navy since water.
Amen. Right? Since you served, never again volunteer yourself.
That's right. Know? That's right. I mean, it is like the greatest recruiting tool that they had for decades.
Mm-hmm.
Decades. Yep. So one, it's a great sequel. But why do we love that movie?
I don't know, because your phone's ringing. I don't know.
Oh man.
Say what?
I can't even find it on my. There it is.
It's an invisible phone, Mikey.
It is.
It is invisible.
I'm so sorry about that.
It's okay. We still love you.
Thank you.
Well, Paul does. I might not.
That's fair. That's fair. Paul loves me because I don't live there anymore.
Yeah. Wrong.
I'm easier to love from a distance. So I love this movie because I think it is such a great discipleship movie. I'm a little obsessed with it. I've watched it too many times. And I love the transition from self to selfless. It's one of the best character developments I think that Tom Cruise has ever done. Because I don't think he does that really well.
Oh, so now I'm gonna have to go back and rewatch it, man.
Oh,
because for me, his movie of transformation is 100% Edge of Tomorrow.
Okay.
Edge of Tomorrow is the one that I charge my young people who want to get married. You go, especially the guys. I go, this is the movie you have to watch.
That's
because he dies over and over and over and over again. He's in love with it. And he started out as a total jerk. Absolute
and I'd say
total
Rain
jerk.
Man too.
Oh,
yeah. Rain Man as well, which is you ever seen Rain Man, Mikey?
I've not seen Rain Man, but I have seen The Edge of Tomorrow. So
yeah, there's a good evolution in that, but maybe not so much in the movie, but the transition from 80s Maverick to current day Maverick
Right.
Even the way he takes the hit. Okay, spoilers alert! If you don't skip, if you don't want to, we'll put a little marker.
You better put something out there.
Yeah. I mean, the movie's at what? How old is that movie? It's like it's a few years old now.
It's 3 or 4. 3 or 4. Probably 4.
No, it's. Where's our producer? Katie, look it up and let us know. But the sacrifice. Let's say the sacrifices that he makes. There's only one thing I think would make that movie better. Do you want to hear my hot take? If he actually died.
Here's the problem I have right now in life is I cannot remember movies. So anything, I don't know if that's just a phase you go through with raising little kids, like your brain just turns to mush. But
you're in zombie mode half the time, Mikey. I mean,
yeah,
so what's the ending of Top Gun Maverick? Can you remind me? And I know I've watched it, but
the big redemption arc.
Good job.
Okay, so it came out in 22. So it's 4. But 4 years old. But it's the arc is him basically saving Goose's son on a couple different levels.
That's right.
So that's where it's like a discipleship movie because it's him interacting with Goose's son. And there's Goose. If you don't know this is not a spoiler alert. It's statute of limitations. You're way past your prime. Goose is the younger pilot's dad that dies with Maverick in the first movie. And so now his son is a fighter pilot. Maverick has intervened in his life at different points, and now there's this impossible mission, and who's going to go on the mission, and yada yada yada. And so, So there's a existential threat to Rooster is the son's name to Rooster, and a physical threat to Rooster's life, and there's different self-sacrifices throughout the movie, but all in the effort of. And
you feel like it would have topped over if he would have died at the end, Tom Cruise.
Only for the weight of it, like if for the sacrifice to be complete.
But then there's no Top Gun 3, which is coming.
Which is absolutely coming out. Which is absolutely coming out.
They made a business.
Oh my gosh.
Well, I mean, John Wayne, who made over, I don't know how, like over 200 movies, I think has only died in 4. So I don't think there's a lot. I don't think, man, that'd be great. I don't think you could name a movie where Tom Cruise has died.
He dies over and over. Edge of Tomorrow, man.
Well, come on.
Think about it. Like, dude,
that's Groundhog Day with robots. Come on.
That's fantastic. No, they're aliens, man. They're not robots. Come on now.
No, I mean, he's in the mech suit. Like,
well, that's true.
Yeah.
His exoskeleton. Let's
and then there's a crazy theory. So the movie starts with Tom Cruise doing a test pilot thing. I think he goes like Mach 9 or something like that. And there's a crazy theory that he dies in that moment. And everything else is, I think that stuff's dumb, but I do think it's entertaining. People's theories of like what really, but yeah, there's no way. If there's Top Gun 3 totally kills any of the ideas that you might have about him being in the afterlife. And an incredible use of Val Kilmer. They did such a good job with that. So if you love the first and you haven't seen Top Gun Maverick from a youth ministry standpoint, watch it. We could do a whole episode on it. Maybe we should. Maybe we should have like an event, like a live viewing. Let's watch it together and do color commentary.
Oh yeah, let's do it.
Yeah. So to segue into our conversation, Paul, you're a ruling elder. You're not an ordained pastor, and you have a different professional life. I am an unordained professional youth ministry person, and Mikey, you're ordained, and can you describe your over youth and families?
Exactly. Nailed it, Matt.
Yeah. So we have a little bit of a spectrum of experience, but Paul, can you tell us just kind of like, where did you grow up? How did you come to know Christ, and start with that?
Okay. So I grew up in a house where it was me and my brother were a year and a half apart, and my parents were raised Lutheran. So they were in the Bethesda, Rockville area of Maryland, closer to DC, moved us up to Glen Burnie. And basically I was this little 6-year-old that was climbing pine trees and having a good time catching frogs and cussing up in the tree. That's all I remember. Right. That's just, and the thing is, so like we weren't churched really. And then mom and dad got convicted by the Lord on several things. I think mom first, and then she had heard about Severna Park EP Church and then started dragging me and Kevin and dad there in 1978.
And your mom's formidable. She could drag anybody she wanted.
Yeah, mom's a force to be reckoned with, ain't no doubt, man. So, you know, you meet Connie, man, she's a force to be reckoned with. That's a whole pile of sassy right there. So she took us to this church, and it was meeting in a school at the time. It was a small break off from Annapolis Evangelical Presbyterian, and it was led by a guy, Mike Kennord. And I was watching these families at the age of 9 and 10. I was watching these families. They would all stand up. He would say to them, and this is a tradition I've started with every group that I work with now, is I ask them, what has the Lord been doing in your life this week? And he would ask that question amongst these 50, 60 people, right? Just like 15, 20 families. And they would stand up and they would start sharing what they were doing. And so the Lord got a hold of me through Mike's teaching and what I was witnessing at the church. Because these people, somebody would stand up and say, yeah, we had this going on. There was this health situation. We prayed about it. And then the Lord did X, Y, and Z through it. And then somebody'd stand up and be like, yeah, I was out at washer or dryer or something, and then prayed about it. And then all of a sudden out of nowhere, and I'm like going, what? And I'm just a kid and I'm watching all this stuff. And it was that moment where I was like, you know, if what Mike is saying is true, that Jesus is king, then I need to ask him in my life. And I did. And I also remember saying to him, Lord, if you're king and you've made me and you've given me this life, then I give it back to you and you can do what you want with it. And I'll sign on for whatever you want. I'm a 10-year-old making this decision. I'll do whatever kind of adventure you want because I trust you with this.
Wow.
And man, oh man, has it been an adventure. Because I had no idea what I was signing on for at 10. And then I'm like, you know, that first year was great. I remember some young lady, Teresa, who kind of had a thing for me in elementary school, came up and says, you're different. I'm like, what do you mean I'm different? She goes, you don't cuss anymore. I was like, interesting. Yeah, that didn't last long. But then the thing is, like, it was after that, like, I kind of wandered for quite a while, you know, from, 10, 11 years old up until rededicated my life to Christ when I got to be 18, 19, right? You're trying to make decisions about what I'm going to do with college and what's going to happen there. I was in a horrific 2-year relationship. Well, it was a 2-year relationship. It had its ups and downs. But it was with a girl that she was delightful and wonderful on so many levels, but she never had an interest to go to church. And the Lord's like, get out. And that whole entire time from 10 to like 18, 19, it was clear to me that my gift was prayer. Spiritually, my gift was prayer.
Yeah.
So, because I don't know, I to this day, I still don't think I'd have much more beyond that going for me. And even then, it's a tough thing, but the Lord's been very grateful to answer prayers with all kinds of yeses, nos, and I got a better way, Junior. So, but 19, rededicated myself to the Lord, went to Northeast Missouri State University for art, painting. And then while I was there, my cousin, I lived with my relatives there, and my Uncle Don really is my spiritual mentor. I mean, my dad and mom did a good job of leading me, but I really didn't start making the strides and understandings that I made spiritually until I talked with Don and watched Don and Jean lead their family. And then he was a professor at the college I was attending. I also think that man pulled some strings to get me in, because I'm definitely dumber than a box of hair. I had no business being there with these geniuses there at this liberal arts college. But while I was there, the other big step was that Linda, my cousin, she was finishing high school, and I'm just trying to get through college, and she prayed every day. She sang every day in her room while she did her work. And I would say to her, I don't I try to read the Bible. It just doesn't make sense to me. And then she said, do you pray before you read it? And I go, no. She said, Paul, try praying before you read it and see what happens. And literally that year I'd go, before I'd open the word, I would ask him to open my eyes, my ears, my heart, my mind to what was there. And he did. He's been faithful ever since. So, so grateful for my cousin, Linda, who I call Yolanda, which is really confusing for her parents. So, but, yeah. And so ever since then came back, came right out of a recession, got married right after college to love of my life, best friend. We had a long distance relationship for almost 5 years before we got married. So I was going to Northeast Missouri and she was going to Towson here in Maryland. And, we started that adventure together and been on it ever since. Somewhere along the lines, I was working with Trip Beans, who he's headed up RUF up in PA and here for universities. He's now transitioned to the Chapelgate, I think he's in now. Pastoring there or helping pastor there. But I got to watch him in youth ministry and he gave me an opportunity and said, hey, why don't you come teach Sunday school? I was like, okay. And at this point, I wasn't, I think so. I was probably police trainer at that point. So,
okay. Yeah. I want to put a pin on this for a second.
Yeah, sure.
Because you are like the Dos Equis most interesting man alive. I want you just to focus on the professional aspect of, because your career is baffling. So you go study fine arts, painting.
Yep. Painting. Yeah. Airbrush artist.
Airbrush, right? Which, and for anybody that's a comic book fan, Alex Ross, is it Alex Ross?
Oh, he's one of my favorites. Yeah.
That's your favorite artist. And you can see that, like how that shaped like your art. So you go study fine art. Just tell us the career arc, because this is hilarious.
Yeah,
Mike, I can't wait for Mikey to hear this.
I graduate. So I had to graduate with a Bachelor of Fine Arts degree. I had to work an extra year. The first senior year I was there, they told me there was a survey that came out. And so this had been 91. Survey came out and said 1 out of 1,000 art graduates will be able to support themselves on their artwork alone. And I called my mother and told her, and at this time, my fiance, she's gone in, she was going to be a teacher and then said, forget that. I'm going to go into psychiatry or psychology. And so when I told my mom, she just burst into tears. She's like, what did we do? What did we do? And you're like, okay. So I graduate. I also tore 2 of the 3 ligaments holding my foot to my ankle the week before I was leaving. So Dad had to come out and drive me home because I was driving clutch. And so but it's a recession anyway. So at this point, Clinton's got us in a recession. And I'm like, okay, I don't know who's going to want to hire an artist with a busted leg. And like, I'm putting out resumes to people and trying to figure out what I'm going to do. And
has that movie My Left Foot come out yet?
And I'm just like, okay, I don't know what I'm going to do. And I remember Nicola's mom basically said, I don't care if you're flipping burgers or pumping gas. You're not marrying my daughter unless you have a job. And eventually when I finally get the job, my mom pointed to it and she said, I think you should work at Heck Company, which is retail. And I was like, oh my gosh, really? Spent 6.5 years in retail. So ended up leaving that company. So after 6.5 years, I left that company, but that taught me that I really enjoyed training and I really enjoyed managing people. And ended up helping a guy back on a path and led him to Christ. Good old Doug Kurzmiller. Doug, man, that's an amazing, interesting story. But 6.5 years retail, and also learned how to train, how to teach. Then after that, Doug and I both escaped that place, and we thought we landed this great, wonderful job doing light industrial hiring. We were hiring people for light industrial companies in Baltimore. So there's a lot of HR type work, but then they got you, man, because you literally were working 10 to 12 hours a day 4 out of the 5 days of the week. And it was the worst job I've ever had. And there it was like, I basically perfected the craft of interviewing. I'd interview people because we interviewed 30 people a day. And I interviewed anything from people that were borderline homeless to hookers that were walking topless the week before and causing accidents down in Fells Point. You know, and then killing mice in my spare time because that was what was going on in the room right in front of me while I was interviewing in there. It was crazy. But then 9/11 happened. And I just remember thinking, I'm not really doing a very good job I'm not doing a noble job at all. Like, this is not noble. This isn't, life is crazy. You know, my 2 kids are watching film on TV of people jumping out of buildings to save themselves from buildings that are on fire. The world was nuts. And I just knew I needed out of that job. And once again, listen to the ladies in your life, right? First one was mom, got me the 6.5 years experience at Hex. And then my mother-in-law says, hey, there's a security job over at the agency, National Security Agency. I'm like, security? Yeah, I could probably do that. I don't know. I was like, I don't know what they're going to do with an artist with a, fine arts degree. The thing is,
packing brushes on your belt.
Yeah, which is funny because literally here's a lot of people don't know about this dirt, and it's unclassified, so I can tell you.
If they cut the feed, somebody check on Paul.
Right.
If we go dark, check on Paul.
I'll get black bagged and dragged out here in a van, man. That's usually mine and your move, but okay. So literally the moment the planes hit, they were getting ready to reduce the people that were working at the agency that were law enforcement, and they were going to go to private contracting because their numbers had gone from 700 to 200. For all the agency. And you're like, what? And when the second plane hit, that was the end of that. Then it was like, nope, it's on like Donkey Kong. We need to like protect everything, reinforce everything. We need to start expanding where the intel is and what's going on, extend the enterprise. And so I was a part of the wave that went in, and they were offering the security job. I had no idea once again what I was signing on for there. I thought it was security. I get in there and
you're a security guard at NSA.
Yeah, right. And then you get in and you do the physical evaluation battery. I just knew there was something special about the people there. And I was like, well, I really want to work here. And Lord blessed me with an opportunity. And so I was a police trainer for 10.5 years there. So, which was interesting because once I got in as a recruit, they made me the president of the largest class that's ever graduated the academy. There's 33 of us. I was only able to bring 31 of us home. The other 2 failed out, unfortunately. But yeah, you go from that. I'm like, well, I don't know what I'm gonna do with my life now. I got 10.5 years as a cop, and the Lord saw fit to allow me to get out of that job, still at the same location, but working for a different organization. And then I got to do 10 years as a graphics production artist. So I was able to learn what I was pretending to be a graphic artist is really what happened. And then while I was doing that, 3 years in, my best friend, Sam the man love, all right, Mad Skill Sam, taught me how to build things in 3 dimensions. And so I was literally building fabricated art that was going to be mounted on walls. And so I had to understand how those things would be installed and stuff. So after that, went sideways. After 10 years, the management had changed and they didn't want to do production anymore. And so they made it so that wasn't a really good environment for me to be in. And one of my fellow artists said, Paul, I don't want you to go, but I found this other job here. And that one I can't talk about, but man, oh man, oh man. It's still using art. It is the coolest job in the world. And everybody who comes and visits me at my shop walks out and says, you got the coolest job. And I was like, it's a blessing. And I work with the most gifted artists. I work with the most gifted, super gifted PhDs, people that are experts in large language models and machine learning. data scientists. These folks are geniuses. I work with the most gifted network person I've ever met in my entire life, and she is one of my best work buddies. She's a Jehovah's Witness who doesn't act like a Jehovah's Witness. She knows Christ better than most human beings I've ever met. And it's a joy to be able to speak to her every day about things I read in Scripture and about Christ, and it's pretty neat. But yeah, it's been a strange ride, man. Go from artist to cop to sort of the arts, and then back to doing art operationally so that we can save lives and stop bad guys. And that's pretty neat.
But you weren't just a cop. I mean, like you had a couple of specialties of
I was fortunate to because that was the guy that was like, people were like, who wants to be the use of force expert? And everybody stepped back, and I was Gilligan in the front of the line and got selected. You're like, oh, okay. And I mean, it was just, I didn't mind teaching. I love teaching, and I have a heart for my officers. I loved them. And I was always really interested to have them come and visit me in between classes, in between their work shifts, and share with me what was working on post for them and what was not working. And like things like asking, well, we had this happen, and I'd be like, okay, well, I need to know that. I want to be able to teach to that and hand that over to the officers. And like, I would do my best to spend whatever time, energy, and own personal money just to really try to help them out. So yeah, I was very blessed the last few years to be considered the use of force expert for law enforcement for that organization from like 2009 to 2012. I was there. So
wow, it's quite an arc. An arc. Yeah. But Mikey, any questions before I jump into the next stuff?
No, okay. Dude, you are a shepherd, a pastor. I mean, it's pretty clear that God has given you a gift, and it's not in necessarily the context of like a preacher teacher from the pulpit, but as a ruling elder, clearly that has defined you in everything that you're doing. So it's pretty awesome.
No, it's cool. Fun. It's cool. I appreciate that, man. It's cool when you could be. I wish I was more obedient and more faithful to the Lord, but He's definitely been faithful to me, and in every single one of those careers. And I mean, I'm on my third career now at the same place. Every single one of those careers, He has done an incredible, mighty work that like you get blown away by, like, and it has to do. All of it was related to that first gift, the prayer. Like, and I told a story of, and the guy, he's now the police chief. It'd be fantastic. Like this guy, he's the police chief. I know more dirt about him now. Okay. And I went to Evan's graduation. So imagine like a year and a half ago, Evan's graduating, who I helped expedite his entry into this job as an officer. And he said, hey, Kangas, you're going to come to my graduation? I go, yeah, I'll be there. And there's the symposium. We're all in the stadium seating. And there, you can only fit like 170 people in there. And there's my old coworker from the training unit who we did things that were appropriate and highly inappropriate. And he was the prankster among all of them, including things like, I'm going to take a dead snake and throw it in the back of a Polaris and then see what my coworkers do. All right, like that's the kind of prank level we're talking. Well, that's the only one I could share right now with mixed company. But like he saw me in the audience while he was talking. I was so proud of him. He's up there as chief of police. Nobody's done it. Nobody has gone from like low man on the totem pole all the way up. Usually they hire a special agent
right
to do it. But he did it. He's standing there, and all of a sudden he's scanning the crowd as he's talking, and he's got all that, he's that bravado, and he's like all that encouragement for like what these folks are going to do now that they're going to graduate, and all his eyes hit me. Holy smokes. He goes to like stuttering Mike. He's like, and I was like, I never should have came here. I'm like, dude, he's no good. His face goes so red. I was like, oh man, it's a mess. But yeah, he's like, yeah, it was something else.
But Catherine, my daughter, is graduating high school. And you knew her when she was a little itty bitty. Yeah, little itty bitty. She still has beef with Paul though, because
here we go.
When Star Wars,
you gotta bring up the Star Wars, the Han Solo crap. Oh my gosh, dude! Oh my gosh!
Star Wars Episode 7 comes out, right? And Catherine wants to go see it. I forget how old she is. Like I don't know what year that was, but she's little, right? And so I said, well, let's ask Mr. Paul if it's okay. Like he saw it. Let's go see what he thinks. We're like, is it okay for Catherine to go see this movie? He's like, absolutely. It was great. We go, first 10 minutes, they kill Han Solo, and like Catherine's devastated. Just she's crying. We had to leave the theater. She's crying the whole movie, like nothing, like she can't get past it.
It's great. It's great.
She's like, Mr. Paul said it was okay.
I bet she had some choice words for me offline. I bet she did. Yeah.
But I could not tell that story. But
oh my gosh.
As we're going through this process with her, right? I've watched her grow up. I've watched her use her gifts in ministry, like in the youth ministry and children's ministry at several different churches. Her goal is she wants to be a counselor. And I'm like, I don't want to push this, but I'm like, she'd be an incredible youth director. But she would also be an incredible counselor. And she also, her other love is literature. Like, and she toys with the idea of being a literature teacher. And all of those things she would be so good at because of like the core set of gifts and talents that she has would translate very easily to any of those and probably several more careers. And that's what I think about with you, Paul. Like, you submitted to Christ and said, this is my life. Do with it what you will. And boy, did he.
Yeah.
And you said, whatever the adventure is, it was nuts, right? Like retail is, if in the nation of Israel now, every kid has to go through the military. If I was the president, I would almost say every kid has to work fast food and every kid has to work retail, because it's a crucible that you learn, and you learn people and you learn how to interact with, difficulty, be on your feet for 8 hours a day. But all those different things that there's that core, that's Paul, right? That is the shepherd, that is the discipler, really, is what I would say. More than anything, you're a discipler. And that's the training and the caring and all that stuff that goes with it. And that's been a core part of your success and whatever you've done, wherever you've been,
Well, I think you're being kind. I think I learned more probably watching you and getting an opportunity to pray for you and your ministry and Katie. It didn't matter who was in the job, pray for them as they went through it. I mean, you and I ended up having to duke it out with like some of the bureaucracy that's there, right? Like I thought, is Matt going to bring this up? Because I know he has PTSD on it. And like, you just have to bring it up. It's like, hey, he's going to go there like 1,000-yard stare but like, the thing is like, that was such an important fight, right? You go,
right.
I'm using money, Paul. Am I using this money the right way? And I'm like, yeah. And then I'm going to the session meetings and saying, hey, this is for ministry. He's not misusing the funds. This is what the funds are being used for. The other thing too is like, because nobody else was there during any of when you're developing your volunteer team, when you're putting together the retreats, when you're having conversations with the students, when you're engaged with them during youth group, most of the elders weren't a part of that. So then you go, hold on a second. Like, let me explain to you what's going on.
Yeah.
Like, let me tell you about what Matt's giftings are, and then be able to say, he's not throwing money into the wind. That's not what's going on. What he's doing is he's developing a volunteer team and has this team energized, and he's got them reaching out and serving and loving these kids. And that group of kids, they'll do anything and everything for the Lord. Like, that's the whole, like, and you go, but you have to be there as the elder to be able to explain that to them if they're not involved, if they're not putting eyes on the situation. So it's like, okay, if you don't have an elder that's going to advocate for that and pray over it. But the other thing too is definitely being able to walk amongst whatever the Lord's put on your heart to be a part of. And for me, it was the whole children's ministry, from the stuff Michelle was doing on up through what you were doing at the time. And the church has been, the church has been blessed by the Lord and his protection and his oversight and his coverage of what's going on. But I honestly think I learned way more and was more inspired by the work that you and Katie have done in the past. I literally was in the room with you, and I cite you often to some of the elders that I still talk to nowadays when we get the new elders that'll come in, I'll say, hey, let me tell you about like some things I've seen as an elder that I think are pretty extraordinary. And this is like, so if there's not an elder, if there are elders out there that are not getting involved with the youth ministry, they're missing out, right? They're missing out on how God's working with the next generation and these youth groups. And one of the most powerful conversations I ever remember was when we ended up talking to the young lady, and we had to have a conversation with her. Yeah. Did you already share this? Did you share this at all? No. Yeah, this is powerful. So she basically had 2 Facebook accounts, and one was really her and one wasn't. And we were trying to figure out which one she was, because she had already taken the vows to be a member of the church, and her and her sister were both adopted with that particular family. And at this point she's 18. So she's not even, she's an adult by age anyway. But at one account, she's a believer. On the other one, she's calling herself an atheist, but she also was saying that she was all these other things as well. And I thought it was amazing watching, because I'm sitting there praying. All I could do is pray, because I'm like, yeah, I don't have this gifting. And I was there for that meeting with you and the 2 sisters, and we're trying to get down to like what's going on. And I'm just there to say, look, I just don't want you partaking in communion, eating and drinking, and bringing judgment on yourself. If you don't feel that way, if you feel like your parents talked you into being a member, I'm not interested in that. Right. But you ended up, it was cool because you came right out the gate and did everything. Dude, I'm thinking, did he work with Ed Welch and like all this stuff that was going on in the back? Because you did textbook, what you apologize for not knowing how to deal with the situation. What do I call you? And then you very graciously and gently loved her in that situation. And I don't think that her or her sister felt like overwhelmed or intimidated. I think they were going to walk away going, okay, maybe we don't agree with those guys, but they love us.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. And they were just trying to get down to the bottom of it. But yeah, to me, I tell that story because I'm just like, I actually saw Head leave and Jesus was present in the room. For me, that's what I saw, because you were being faithful to do what you were doing. And so you tell another, this is what you're missing out on. If you're faithful and you watch, you will see Jesus at work amongst these kids and with the youth leadership, and the youth ministers are doing their job. So appreciate it.
And so, yeah, that's the progression I want to talk about next. Not your professional progression, but you're at Severna Park for, basically your whole life, except for when you're at school, right?
Oh yeah.
So this is a church that you come to know Christ in, the church you grow up in. You're married. How many kids do you have when Tripp invites you to come teach Sunday school?
We had 4 and we're working on 5. 5 showed up the year after that.
Yeah. So Tripp was the youth director there for 16 or more.
Oh yeah. It was a pretty long time. Yeah.
16 years. Yeah. And at some point he invites, and you're not an elder yet, or are you?
Nope.
No, you're not an elder. So he invites you to come in to be a Sunday school teacher. Tell us a little bit how that kind of grew and evolved.
So I was teaching Sunday school and I didn't know what I was doing. I was in love with the word, and I have Jehovah's Witnesses and Mormons visiting me at home every week, prior to that. Cause that was still at that point I was, let's see, where was I? At that point, I was probably on the crazy job at that point. So, but yeah, I started teaching all kinds of Sunday school courses. He usually was throwing curriculum at me or would throw a book at me and be like, hey, you want to teach this? I'm like, yeah, okay. And started figuring it out, and then just worked with the high school. I felt like I was more gifted teaching and working with the high school. I could understand that kind of brain power, and, but the thing is, it's weird because I was never really actively involved in the youth ministry like the kids that I'm meeting at church. So I kind of maybe I was vicariously living through them, because I'm just like, wow, this is the stuff I missed, because I was just an outsider and still struggling in my faith, but still faithfully going to church and learning under the leadership of Mike and Glenn, who are preaching and teaching faithfully the word of God. But after So from 2005, 2006, from that time, we would teach and co-teach while he was trying to finish up seminary. And I ended up eventually feeling the call to be an elder, but I had to get myself straight for a while, because there was at least a year where I ended up. So after I became a cop, there was a year where I had to like basically take off. There's no way I could help him out because I was working third shift my first. As soon as I became a cop, I was 1 year on post, and I'm doing third shift. So I was out of pocket. And then after that came back on and like jump right back into the Sunday school lesson. But it was interesting because as a trainer, I was learning these lessons for officers to help them save their lives and other people's lives. But then I was seeing all these crazy spiritual lessons at the same time. You know, you go, oh, I learned about the OODA loop. Whoopity do. Then you go, yeah, huh. Let me talk about spiritual OODA loop and how that works. Or let's talk about how the eye works versus the ear. And like, let's talk about with regards to spirituality and how that works when you're reading the word. And then at some point I got snagged up in being an elder. I was asked to be an elder, and I told him I can't do it because there was a year where I was like neck deep in pornography, and not like movies, but like imagery, because I was the guy currently working at the police force where I was doing all of the videos for these recruit classes. So I'm grabbing stuff off the internet. It doesn't matter what you're doing. And all of a sudden, like, you're 3 clicks away from some inappropriate imagery that takes me down a road I don't need to go on.
Yeah.
So it took a year where I was like, no, I need to get myself straight. And then, of course, the Lord ended up banging on my heart and saying, hey, you know what? I just want you to go ahead and start reading this. I'm on vacation, and all of a sudden the Lord's prompting me to go ahead and start doing a study on Sodom and Gomorrah. I was like, are you kidding? Well, what? Like, Lord, I'm having a nice vacation. No, this is what you're going to start reading and studying. And then ended up eventually creating this lesson plan that I was fortunate enough to be able to share with some other men at church, because all of a sudden they started, because people, you know, I'd have like a Max Benfer and he'd go, hey man, what you reading lately? And I'm like, you don't want to know. They're like, no. So I tell him, and he's like, hey, I got like 3 guys that could really use this kind of encouragement. I'm like, okay. And I'm like, but I was
one of the this is one of the pastors that was on staff at the time. Yeah.
Yeah. Young pastor. But, you know, then you become elder. And then when I was praying about accepting the call of elder, the conviction I had was a strange one. And I kind of wish I'd never said it out loud. So when I got called in and they said to me I had taken the written test, we were there at the table with the elders, and they said, well, you know, how do you know, why do you feel like you're being called to be an elder? And I said, I feel like I'm being called to be an elder in the spirit of Elisha. And they all kind of sit back, what does that mean? And I said, I'm convicted because of the incident with the Shunammite woman. I said, you got a prophet who he's praying, and this woman's son dies, and she comes to him. And as she's approaching, he says to his servant Gehazi, go out and find out if there's something wrong with her or her husband or her son. And she denies it all, comes and then falls at his feet and grabs him by his feet and explains what's going on. And Gehazi, he makes this really strange comment to her. He says, she's in anguish and the Lord has kept it from me. And then he tells Gehazi, hey, go take my staff and put it on the kid's face. And as I'm studying the scripture, I start realizing, no. The Lord wants me to get face to face with spiritual death. He wants me to get face to face and get in the muck and the mire and the ugliness and the hideousness of it all, so that I can somehow encourage them, somehow pray for them. And I was like, okay, you know, and then fast forward, then what happens? See this. And so I tell this to these guys, I'm like, look, I know I'm being called to get into the muck. And literally the first year I'm an elder, they put me in this horrific case where none of the elders wanted to step in and prosecute a guy in the middle of a horrific divorce separation situation. I'm good friends with this guy. And I basically said, I guess I'll do it. Like, so love him through this and like try to work through it. You're like, that was the beginning of getting in the middle of some of that stuff. But then you fast forward, and then 2017, I lose my boy. he dies from an overdose, literally 3 feet from where I'm sitting, and I haven't tried to perform CPR on him. So I'm face to face and hands on, praying that God would resurrect my kid. And I thought I could feel the enemy laughing at me. Like, yeah, you said you want to get face to face, you want to get in the dirt, and you want to get. You're like, wow, dude, like, wow. So I know that the Lord was there. He never left me in the middle of all that. But the reality is, like, it's a joy as an elder to be able to pray over people that are doing the work and that you and Mikey and others are doing, because you are getting in the middle of the dirt and the muck. You know, that forced me to go out and read crazy books like Scouting the Divine, I think, by Margaret Ferguson. And there were books that are about eldering, like, or about shepherding, like the Shepherd Trilogy by Philip Keller, which is fantastic. And then that drove me to go to Kinder Park and hang out with my good shepherdess friend, Jen. And she starts teaching me about these animals and jumping in a pen with them. I'm like, I don't know anything about raising animals. And she thinks she's teaching me about sheep. And all of a sudden she says things like, I go, what are you doing? She throws me in with these giant animals. She goes, yeah, okay, go over there and feed them. I thought I was going to get knocked out.
Yeah.
Completely clobbered. And she's like, no. We stand back here and we watch them. And she goes, I'm looking for symmetry. I'm looking for how they interact with one another. And I was like, oh, really? Like, wow. I come home, type up this stuff. I'm like, yeah, Paul, do you just kind of shut your mouth? Because, you know, I mean, I know Matt and I had the same disease, because I can talk and like I can talk the ears off a dead man. But sometimes he's like, no, I just watched Jen. She just sat back and looked and would taught me things about shepherding that she didn't understand. She's teaching me about what it's like to interact with my congregants and with family members. Like, just sit and watch what they do sometimes. The other thing too, like, she ended up having a ram. This was like so profound to me. She gets her first ram and she introduces me to him. She goes, this is Benny. She goes, don't do anything too crazy until you like get your scent and stuff. I'm like, okay, great. She introduced me to the ram. And I said, so what it was like raising him? And she's like, I had to take him 2 weeks. He couldn't go in the pen with the rest of the sheep. And I go, why is that? She goes, because sometimes they kind of go crazy and they can kill the rest of the sheep, this male sheep. But you need him in proximity to be able to pick up the scent, and that scent would interact with the two different pens. I said, okay. And I go, what happened when you released him? And this was profound for me as a man, as a husband, as a human being. She said, he did something. She goes, when he got released with the rest of the sheep responded in a way I've never seen here at the farm before. And I go, what's that? She said, every single one of them was zen, went totally calm when he got in there.
Wow.
And I said, wow. What's that mean? And she said, well, it was like they knew they were going to be okay with him there. And I thought, I came home and I remember typing up and I go, Benny went into the pen after being 2 weeks out, knowing that his mission and job was to take care and oversee this flock and to like procreate. And what was their response? They were at peace. And I was convicted. I'm like, do I bring that to a situation? You know me full well. I've gone to some session meetings and I'm like, I'd have you and others praying for me. I'm like, dude, I was just like fist clenching. I'm marching back and forth like, oh, they don't understand this. And, you know, I'm thinking, I don't do that, you know, and that's still something I work to this day, like struggle with. I wish I was more of a lover of peace and like could bring peace, and that's felt when I come across to somebody. So, but yeah, the whole elder thing, like, it's just, I really do. You could ask any of the pastors and any of the elders that are at my church, and they'll tell you I got some weird wired thing upstairs where all I do is talk about shepherding and the analogies that are therein. Because I think the more I learn about that and I continue to see what's going on with regards to shepherding, I just like, the more I learn about the Lord and I learn more about the relationships that he was trying to exemplify inside scripture. So, but it's something I continue to do. I'm big about, I need to get more serious about the discipleship and how it's working. I mean, we did 3 years doing Pope's Life on Life project. Mm-hmm. So, but I feel like the church has dropped that right now. So they've leaning towards small group, and they're not doing that. But I'm doing it. I'm gonna do it.
Paul,
yeah.
You talk about. I'm curious your opinion. You know, what's the as an elder, the tension that you have between being an active leader or a passive leader. Do you know what I mean by that? So like, it's like bringing peace, but also not being passive. Because sometimes there can be sessions that are just passive. They're just approving reports, checking it off. They don't know anyone. They're not doing anything in the ministry. They're just coming together like a board and just sort of check, check, check. And it's all peace. It's all under the banner of like, we're just great. We're just keeping the peace, you know, but there's a lack of it's passivity maybe, and not necessarily like, it's kind of like it's lost that ability like that ram has. The ram has the ability to kill every single sheep in there in a sense, but also the God glorified version of that is it produces protection and safety so that those sheep can be exactly how God made them to be, if that makes sense, because they have a ram with them. You know what I mean? They have a, you know, so as an elder, as a shepherd, as we come in, needs to be an element that, you know, like you were talking about kind of the clenched fist, like there's and you've wrestled that out to produce peace. But then I think there are elders that are maybe just like, I'm just a peacemaker. Like, what's that? You know what I mean? The tension between the two, and there's something in the middle probably that we want to land on. Could you speak to that?
Yeah, you're smart, man. You're smart, very wise. So like, here's my understanding, and once again, if I didn't say it before, it's true. I am a bit of a window licker. All right, so I'm not the brightest bulb, but here's the things I've learned by making thousands of mistakes, and that is like, I also don't want to belittle the elders that their calling is the more business end, right? The ones that go, I love writing policy, and I'm like, oh no, like like nope, can't do it. Like nope. So God bless them for their giftings and what they bring to the table. I think I still struggle personally with like when I'm supposed to like step forward and jump into the fray, and then when I need to be holding back and just lock it down, just shut my mouth and don't say anything, and then watch God do some work. Like that's the other thing too. Like you can fall really quick into and I know it goes with all ministries, but Jesus is in charge of the church, not me. So for me to kind of sit back and like just trust him in that, like be like, okay, there have been moments though where it's like, no, I'm going to have to say something like this is, I'm not going to be able to sit back. And so I don't know. It's just, I don't know. I need more wisdom on like the when to jump in and get involved. But I do think you got to be brave, man. To be an elder, you got to be brave. The reality is like, God bless LaPiccolo for the advice he gave me the day I signed on to be an elder. He gave me one piece of advice and he said, hey, Paul, because I'm going to tell you the same thing that I was told when I became a pastor at seminary. He goes, it's one of my seminary teachers told me. He says, the sheep bite and they bite hard. And I was like, holy cow, man. I'm like, okay. And I tell you, you go back, you go, yeah. You go, how do I do that? How would I, if an animal bit me, you know, my tendency would be like, I'm going to punch right in the suck. You know, you're like, but you go, no, you can't. You gotta figure that out. You got to go, how am I going to do this? You know, whether I have to do a Steve Irwin and be like, she's gorgeous. Look at her. She sunk her fangs into me. She's beautiful. Okay, right. I love it. All right. Get me some pineapple and shrimp on the barbie. Right. So, but you go, how am I going to make that work? So I think it's a wise question you ask, Mikey. I think that the reality is I think I need to be more careful and gracious about, because I'm really quick to judge too, which is an awful thing. I still struggle with that. But like just saying each of us have our part and trust in the Lord in it and know when to jump into the fray and be faithful. When he says move, we move. When he tells you to stand still, we got to stand. So, but I think that's wise. You have an understanding of the machinery and how it worked, which is really good.
Yeah. One of the things I think, and to kind of say it back, is like, you have to maybe identify what kind of shepherd you are, in a sense, like how God's gifted you with your gifts. And it sounds like, you know, your gifts are more geared towards like being able to speak into situations, being able to, but then we got to understand with our gifts that there comes a negative way, you know, a negative space behind it, a shadow that can be, okay, I speak too much into it. I think that's maybe where I lean into too, as on a session, is like learning to actually, the brave thing for me, the courageous thing to me is to like do what you were saying, is wait on the Lord, because I want to jump in and speak to this, because I can see that something, and I think when we're sitting in those moments, waiting on the Lord, praying, maybe even praying to God, saying, God, do I say or do I not? That wrestling match happens in there before it happens out in the public with the brothers. And then it's seeing what God does. And then there's times where it's like, I do not want to speak. I know the Holy Spirit's pressing, because no one's speaking to this. And then you have to say something that is potentially very terrifying to speak out into the open and go, kind of ask the question, usually just like, are we missing the mark with this person that we're trying to shepherd? And then it moves from there. You see, but like you said, I think there's having to understand, and there's guys that probably should say something, I think, who lean more on the side of that business side, that we need to hear it from them, or they need to speak up, because they have an angle that we aren't seeing, even though they don't speak much, and often we need to hear their voice, if that makes sense.
Yep, that's wise, man. Super wise.
And I love that you were an elder that engaged with the youth staff, was participating in it. I think that is a great encouragement to any elder, is like, if they're overseeing a specific ministry area, don't just like one phone call and be like, hey, Matt, going good? All right, I'm about to go tell them.
Please.
You know what I mean?
That seems crazy to me, man. That seems crazy to me.
It's like, let's go to the actual youth group. Let's go to the volunteer training. Let's go on even the retreats that are done, like with the volunteers, and let's participate and see. Every single time that there was some skepticism around our youth ministry, I always did this thing where I said, hey, I actually really love what you're saying, because it's critical or whatever it is, like, and it's coming from a place of, we want to see kids love Jesus and thrive, even though it's kind of like, it gets a little personal. Like you said, the sheep bite, you're like,
right. Yeah.
But then I always say to them, it's like, the doors are open, just come. And every parent or every, pastor or every elder that has ever just walked in and came in, they walked away just saying, never mind. I see it now. I see what's going on here. You know what I mean? Thank you for your team. Thank you for, you know what I mean? In some ways. And there are some times, but where it's like, hey, maybe work on this. But every single time, like when the elder gets their feet, or whoever it is gets in with it, I've always noticed that there's just sometimes, like when you just are not in it, you can just be so critical of some things that are very, actually not as big as they're seeming to you. Then when you get a part of it, and you're like, wow, like, look at this thing. Like, look what God's doing. You know what I mean? Despite that small thing, potentially, that I feel like it's a big thing. Anyways.
No, that's good.
Really great.
Yeah, I think, Paul, our experience together was really unique in these ways. We're generationally close, right? And we're, I don't know what the right word is, but from a brain damage standpoint, we suffer the same brain damage. So like we think in terms of like the not just movies, but also like the same movies. We communicate that way, stuff like that. So we got really close really fast. But what I don't think is unique to Matt and Paul, but what I thought was unique to what I experienced with you as an elder, was one, you were involved. And I think that with youth ministry, children's ministry is highly structured. It has to be. You're deploying, you have so many micro groups, like grades, and you have so many teachers that you have to deploy information, curriculum, and you have to deploy stuff over such a broad spectrum that it has to have a high structure. Youth ministry does not have a high structure. You are not only going in there to teach, but you're also a lifeguard, because even as you're teaching, someone could do something stupid that would harm themselves or something. So like most pastors, when they walk into a pulpit, are not trying to think about how do I keep everybody in the room alive. They have other people for that. We're lifeguards. We got to keep everybody alive. There's also every interaction that you have. There's always built in time for hanging out, free time. And so every joke you tell, every kid you high five, every kid you don't talk to is a decision. And you're making a million decisions in the space of 2 hours. And it's perilous. It's perilous. And so to have somebody in the room observing all of that, seeing the risk versus the reward, right? I told this joke, that's a risk, but it paid off because, and my philosophy is it's a very crude philosophy, but from a discipleship standpoint, from a teaching standpoint, even from a preaching standpoint, I've always said, if they'll laugh with me, they'll cry with me.
Yep.
Right? Meaning if we can agree on this is funny, then we can talk about something deeper. But that's a risk. Humor is a risk. How do you show kids affection appropriately? Because they need to know that they're loved and cared for, right? And every kid is different. So it's completely, the Flying Luenda's high wire act. So to have somebody in the room observing that, someone that's doing it and putting, not just I'm in the room and I'm watching with a clipboard, but I'm interacting with all these kids the same, was incredible. And then we had a team where we could dream together. And so we would dream and build things together and build experiences for the kids. You kind of already spoke to it a little bit, but how would you encourage even the policy elder? Because you told a story, and there was a time where when that story was occurring, there was a lot of discussion in the session about policy, in particular about bathrooms.
Oh Lord, yep.
How do we? And I was frustrated with that because I was like, we have people that are living this right now. How are we going to talk to them? And that dialogue wasn't happening on that level. And I'm confessing that was a frustration and we don't need a policy. We need to shepherd. Well, we do need a policy. Like I was wrong about that.
It's interesting, right? It's interesting. Like we fought the fight, and then you're like, that's why I'm saying, like, to Mikey's point, that there are elders and people that are instrumental in the church that maybe they do things differently than us, but then God's going to still use their giftings to protect and cover parts of the church that I'm not. Cause I'm like I said, I'm a knuckle dragger. I'm a troglodyte. I'm like, hey, I don't know the law. Anything I knew about law, I studied just for use of force teaching. That was it. And then how it relates to cops, man. But like, I don't know anything about the laws that govern a county or a state with regards to what's trying to be pushed on it, and you go, okay, well, also we don't want to be fearful about that. Lord doesn't want us to be fearful of what's being pushed on us, but he wants us to hold true and do what's going to encourage and edify and be glorifying to him. So, it's hard to figure out, like, it's just a struggle back and forth where you go, how are we going to do this? I think I liked Mikey's example of just going and asking them to come in, man. Like, if people aren't involved, just going and asking them to come in. And the thing, because they're going to show their colors one way or the other, right? Like, I was thinking, as soon as he said it, it made me think of, I was getting some criticism back when I was a police trainer on some use of force stuff. So I said, oh, okay. So I called the lawyers. I called general counsel. And I said, hey, guess what? Here's where I am. Every Thursday, we're throwing detergent rounds at each other at 700 feet per second, wearing Darth Vader masks and armored up, and you'll see their safety warnings on there. You could get killed if you don't use them properly, but we'd like you to come out and we're gonna let you go ahead and do the course. And that way you can judge for yourself. Never took me up on it. So they were like outside trying to speak inside to a program and its effectiveness. Right. And I was recording the data, video, audio, and the written stuff, pass, fail. Because the other thing too is I was getting a hard time because I was failing people. Other instructors weren't failing people; they were just signing off. And I think you can look around the world now, and I'd love to challenge my brothers and sisters in blue, and say, hey, is that what you're doing? Are you guys just signing off on people now? Like, because if you don't fail them and don't put them back through and help them learn through the situation, you're not doing any good. But I say the invite's a big deal. Like, and also I'd say too, and this is on me because growing up in the church, nobody told me to do this, but to pray for the elders and that God would raise up those who champion what Christ is doing in our churches. We don't, I think we just go, I just pray that moron doesn't make any bad decisions. Amen. You're like, right? Pray that he doesn't drop the communion plate all over the old folks that are gripping on that plate like they're hanging on for dear life, like whatever that prayer is. I think it's like, no, that's shallow. We need to pray that he not only raises up these champions for the youth ministry, but that he enables them and that we work together and communicate with them. And then you share and we've laughed and cried together. I mean, that's just the reality of what it is. Yeah. You go, man, it's sweat, bled, cried, rejoiced over things that we got to see and witness and stuff. And that they're missing out too. I'm going to just say, calling all elders, you're missing out on getting to see Christ at work in a pretty powerful way. And it is cool when you get to come in there and you see what's going on. You go, yeah, man, like this is amazing to see. And basically for me, I've witnessed under your leadership and Katie's leadership, groups now that they could start their own church.
Yeah.
The bond is so tight. Those groups can go out and start their own church. You're like, that's amazing. Nobody's forcing them to develop their own worship team. They already have a worship team built within their group. I can see the leaders that are forming right now and those that are passionate about the word of God and get excited about it. You go, probably future elder right there.
Yeah.
Future pastor. So, but yeah, I think you guys I think that's the right thing. The invite and praying for the God to raise these champions.
Paul, you've given us a lot of time. This would be a little bit longer than we usually go, but if you have time for one more big question.
Sure.
Okay. By my count, since you got involved, you have been involved with over 5 youth staff. Does that sound about right? That sounds
probably right. Yeah.
Yeah, it sounds about right. What advice would you give to anybody that's on staff at a church doing youth ministry? What can they do you were easy. We clicked right away. I didn't have to work on us building a relationship. You were a lifeline to me. I didn't have any friends in Maryland. I mean, like my wife is from there. We had family, which we didn't normally have, but my wife had people she grew up with, she's from that community, but you and we were brothers from another mother right from the get-go.
Yeah.
What have you seen in those different roles? What would you encourage and equip and empower other youth leaders, like how to build those relationships, how to get those people in? Like Mikey gave a great, just inviting them as one. What have you seen that's gone well? What would you, if you could, I put you in front of 100 youth workers, which not even that many watch this podcast.
Oh, heaven help them. Dude, because you guys are the experts on the youth group thing, and it's like, I'll say this, that currently Jordan is overseeing our youth ministry, and Jordan is connected to you and Katie. He is communicating with you. Yes. And the thing is, like, to me, it sends a couple messages to me as an elder of the church. I go, he's not afraid to learn. And he's also tapping into resources with people that served in the same place as him, but they're also in the spiritual walk and journey. They're slightly ahead of him. And I think, man, what a cool thing, because he, in a sense, he has mentors and people that he can contact and trust at the drop of he can just drop a line and call you guys, or he can text you guys, email you guys, and figure that stuff out. And the thing is, you guys are in the trenches. You guys are doing the work. You guys have hit a lot of marks already, and he can get that advice. And I think that's big, because I look back at some of the people that, at least one in particular, that served in our church, there's two people that served doing that same job, and they had no interest in reaching out to others, and they ended up being their own little island. And then that ends up, they silo their entire life and their ministry, and then they think they can reach outside that silo and then kind of still have influence, but it just causes a weird vibe. And then it also, they're disconnected. It's like, who are you kidding, man? Like, who are you kidding? You're not a part of this flock. You crawled over the fence, brother. And Jesus made a very serious statement about that. You know, you're a hired hand, man. You're not really shepherding at that point. He called them thieves that started coming. Like, so as an elder, that makes me panic. When I start to see that, I start to get a little panicky. Being the guy who's all about the shepherd analogies, I'm just like, whoa. Like, if you're not connecting with others that have done the work and you're not wanting to continue to grow, then that's a problem. And also, like, staying rooted in Scripture, staying rooted in the Scripture, and then sharing that with your people and sharing it with one another and speaking it all the time. So that's all I got, man.
Brother, thank you so much for hanging out with us.
It was a joy, man. You guys, mad skills, both of you, mad skills.
Wow, brother, you're one of the best, and so you're a highlight of my life. You're a highlight of my career, and I can't thank you enough for continuing to serve faithfully in all those dirty, ugly, horrible situations. It's
band of brothers, man. Band of brothers.
Yeah, we've spilled the same blood in the same mud, you know.
Yeah.
So it's awesome. Well, you guys, thank you very much, Mikey. Anything else you want to end off with?
Thanks, Paul. What a gift to hold your story and to hear it. So I'm honored. Thank you.
No, thanks, Mikey.
All right.
God bless your ministry.
God bless you guys. Thank you very much.